Amanda here from Brush Party. Wow, there's so many of you. It's amazing. Thank you so much for joining in. Right, we've just got about a minute to go, so I will show you what paints we're using. Hopefully you've got your paints or your pens or colour pencils or crayons, whatever, have them ready. But the colours that we need are green, blue, red, yellow and white. If you haven't got green and you're using paints, you can mix blue and yellow together. And we just need a little bit of white at the end for our strings for our balloons and our little highlights. So hope you've got all your kit ready. I'm very excited to be doing this with you all. Look, I've even got my rainbow nails on. They probably ping off as we go along because I've only just put them on. I've only just painted them, but you know, got to make a bit of an effort, haven't you? Anyway, it's lovely to have you all here. So our painting today, as you know, is to help you all support the NHS and have something lovely for your windows. So it'd be really interesting to see them all. So do take lots of photographs and post them to social media later today or tomorrow. We would love to see them. So whatever you're creating your lovely Hope Floats painting with, yeah, we'd just love to see them. So take photographs all the way through and then you can pop them on social media later on, as I said. Okie dokie. Right, well, before we start, there's a button down there and it says subscribe. So if you want to carry on watching our events and our how-to videos, please do subscribe, and there's a bell for notifications. So please, we'd love to have you on board on our channel. Now, we've got a discount code. It is HOPE20, so that's HOPE20, all in capitals, and that allows you to have 20% off any bookings that you make up until this coming Sunday. So we'd love to have you on some more of our Brush Party events. So do make the most of that discount code. As I said, that's available for discounts on events, all upcoming events until Sunday the 26th. So we're going to have to use, Rachel's going to have to use black felt tips for the string. That's absolutely fine. This is just a guide, so just don't worry, use whatever you've got. You can have whatever colours really. Obviously our rainbow needs to be certain colours, and it does look good if our balloons are kind of reddy orangey, but yeah, doesn't matter. So the first colour I am going to start with, I'm going to use a big brush. So if you've got Brush Party brushes and you're painting, it's the large chisel brush. I've also got two more brushes. I've got a small chisel brush and one of our little number 6 brushes. So, Al, that's all capitals, HOPE20. So the discount is HOPE20, all capitals. So if you go onto the website, brushparty.co.uk, and go to book an event, if you use that code, you'll get 20% off. Exciting. So I'm going to start with green. Now, whatever you're painting on, it doesn't matter which way around you do it. This is what we call portrait, and but you can paint portrait size or you can paint landscape. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to start off with my green. So basically, whatever you're painting on, if we just grab our paintbrush and use the very, very tip of our paintbrush, just to put a little dot right in the middle of whatever you're painting on. And then our rainbow, our first colour is green, and it's going to curve round at the top of that midpoint. So without further ado, I am going to dive straight into my green paint. I'm going to be using the flat side of this chisel brush. If you haven't got our kit, doesn't matter. You can just use any kind of largish brush that you can use the sort of flat side of just to do the background. So I'm going to start probably about a third of the way down my canvas. That's portrait size. I'm going to do a big curve all the way down. So just a nice curve which goes through that center point. Now we've got 6 colours for our background, so you need to leave room just to kind of look at what space you've got. So with green, we've got one hand of this size, and then probably a hand of blue and a hand of purple, and then yellow, orange and red. So that's why we started in the middle, just so that you can it can help you kind of judge where those bands of colour go. So we can also paint on our edges as well. So when you get to an edge, like here, I'm going to paint that green. Now I want to get a better curve on it than that, so just bear with me a second. I'm just going to look at it straight on, that's better. And there we go. So I'm happy with my curve now. So like I said, we're using the flat side of this large brush. Doesn't have to be a chisel brush. Doesn't really matter what it is, as long as you can make a nice block of colour with it, that's absolutely fine. So whatever you're painting with, just need to kind of gauge where 6 of those bands can go. So I could probably put a little bit more green in. And what you can do is you can just sort of fade the edges. This is if you're using paint. You can kind of do it with anything though, really. If you're using felt tip pens, you can do it sort of slightly lighter. If you're using paint, you can just wash that brush out so it's damp, and then just run it along your edges just to lighten it off a little bit. And then that's ready to kind of blend in with your next colour. So you can do it on the top as well. Now you don't want your brush absolutely dripping with water, because then you'll get drips going down through your coloured band, and we don't want that. So that's my first band of colour, my lovely green. So now I'm going to move to blue. So I'm going to give that brush a bit of a wash out. I'm still using my big brush. Happy birthday to Alana Adams and Tane. I won't be able to do all these shout outs because I'm going to be concentrating on my painting, but hello to you all, especially if anyone's having a birthday today. Happy birthday. And I hope you're all nice and safe and well and staying at home. Oh, I see I've got a bit of a drip there, look. If you do get a drip, just grab a tissue and you can just wipe that straight away and we can paint over it. So that's just a little bit too much water on my brush. So I'm not going to paint right up to that green. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a white gap. I don't think I did paint my edges, did I? Anyway, paint your edges if you want to, and you'll get a nice rainbow down the side of your canvas as well if you're using canvas or whatever you're using, if it's got like an edge to it. Now, if you're going to be painting some more brush parties, obviously you've got that lovely discount code which gives you 20% off. Do go to the website brushparty.co.uk and you can see all of our lovely paintings coming up. And we've got absolutely loads of different paintings, and there's different ones, varying sort of ones, some for kids, some for adults. So some are, you know, they're all really different. So hopefully there's something for everybody. So I'm just going to do that blue down there. Also on the website, brushparty.co.uk, we've got our shop. So please do pop to the shop, and we've got new stock in daily, so keep having a look at that. Now I'm going to take the blue all the way down to the bottom because it's much easier to paint our purple over the top of blue. What I'm going to use is a little bit of red in my blue. But if you've actually got purple, that's absolutely brilliant. You can just use your purple down in this bottom last kind of bottom corner here. So keep that going in a nice curve, kind of parallel to the curves that you've already been painting. And then I'll let that dry and we can add a little bit of red to make a purple down the bottom. So take some photographs as you go. If you're posting to social media, our @tag is @brushpartyuk. If you go onto Facebook and you go to posts, there's actually a button for sharing your photos. So you can do that. But if you're posting to Twitter or Instagram, then use that @tag. So it's @brushpartyuk. Also, once you've finished your lovely Hope Floats painting or picture or drawing, we'd love to see photographs of you of them actually in your windows. And then I don't know if you do the clapping on Thursday nights, but we do here. So obviously you've got the opportunity to go outside and clap for our amazing NHS with your lovely new painting in the window. Right, I'm going to do yellow next. Now I've actually got quite a few pots of water here. So because we've just painted blue, it's quite a dark colour. So I'm going to get that brush really, really clean before I paint my yellow. So what you can do is grab a tissue. See, there's still some blue coming off there. So I'm just going to give it a bit more of a wash. So I'm going to use this right next to my green, and then if there isn't any blue in there, it won't matter because we've got it right next to our green. So just going into my yellow. I'm going to be using the flat side of this big brush again, and not too much water because we don't want the drip. So I'm using the flat side of the brush. Now I have got a bit of blue in my colour, so I'm just going to run it over the top of that green, and that will blend it in nicely. Don't worry about this one yet, we haven't blended that in. We'll do that in a minute. So you can just run that over the edge of your green with your yellow, so it makes a slightly lighter yellow colour, green colour rather. So our rainbow is emerging. I'll just give you a bit more of a close-up of that kind of join there. So look, I've just painted with the flat side of my brush just over the edge of that green, and we've got a nice blend going on there. So I'm going to go back to the rest of my yellow band. Now look, I've got a little bit of green coming into that, so I'm just going to give that a bit more of a wipe. Doesn't really matter. Just want to get as much blue off that brush as I can. Keep going with our yellow. And again, you just want to kind of judge how much room you've got left. So we've got yellow, orange and red in this top bit. So I can kind of go up to about there with my yellow. And keep that curve going, that lovely curve that we started with our green colour. Now, if you run your brush, if your brush has got like a nice flat edge, flat side to it, if you run your brush all the way down your colour, you'll get a really lovely even spread of colour, and you won't get any of those kind of brush marks where your brush stops. So keep that going, and you kind of want to try and get your bands of colour about the same depth on all of them. So I'm running that brush all the way down just to get that nice even colour. I'll add a little bit more. So as you get to the edge again, you can kind of paint your brush until it runs out of paint. And then that's a nice part for our next colour to blend into. So just keep going. So it's quite a sort of smudgy yellow at the top here. So I've just kept going with the brush, even though there's not much paint on there. Don't worry if you don't have a gap. I'm just going to go back to my blue now. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit of blue and green and do that join between those two. So I've just got blue and green together. And I'm actually going to add a tiny bit of white as well, because blue and green make quite a dark colour. And we want to keep it nice and light. So I'm scraping most of that paint off on the side of my palette. And then I'm going to go over that join there. So I put a little bit of paint on, not much. And then you can wet your brush and blend it in with a damp brush. So just get all the drips off your brush. Now, if I'm going a bit too quickly, don't worry, you can actually run this line back at the bottom of your screen, which means that you can actually rewind me. So don't feel at all rushed. I want you to really enjoy your painting or your drawing. You can also pause this video. So if you'd like to have a break, have a little barbecue halfway through, whatever you like, you can do that. So don't worry about pausing or rewinding. And also the video is available for 24 hours. So you've got a nice long time to enjoy your painting. Just blending those two colours together, carrying on using that flat side of that brush and run it all the way around, and you'll get a nice even spread of that colour. Something like that. So then we've got our join between our green and our blue. So while I'm down in this bottom area, I'm letting that yellow dry a little bit. I'm going to put some red and blue together. I'm going to do this bottom section here and a bit of purple. If you've got purple paint, like I said, feel free to use that. That's absolutely fine. That's much better, really. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of blue, a little bit of red. And I'm just going to start right down in that bottom corner. I'm just going to lift my canvas up slightly. And again, a little bit of water. And you probably only want one pickup of paint. You don't need much just to make this slightly darker. You can run that brush up into the blue until it runs out of paint. And then all the way back down again. And I'm just going to add a little bit more just to darken it off a little bit. And we've got our little kind of purple bit down in the corner there, just slightly darker. Something like that. So once again, I've got my paintbrush dirty with a dark colour. So I'm going to have to give this a really good wash out. Do you like my nails, by the way? Rainbow nails. I used to do nails. I used to do acrylic and gel nails, and then I became all allergic. So these are just those glue-on temporary nails that I've painted with rainbows. But I thought it needed something a little bit extra for today's painting. Hope you like them. Right, so our next colour is orange. So we're going to be mixing red and yellow together. Just trying to get all that colour off that brush. I'm still using our big brush. Just taking the water off, and there's no more colour coming off of that brush now. So fingers crossed we'll get a nice orange colour. So I am going to take a dollop of my yellow, just pop it to one side. Now for this orange we don't need as much red as we've got yellow, so it's far better just to take a little dollop of red at a time and add it to your yellow rather than the other way around. It's much easier to make something darker than it is lighter, so we're going to do it this way around. That's just about right actually. So we want a nice light orange, and I can put our next band of colour in. Again, it wants to be about, on this canvas, which is a 20 by 16, it's probably about a hand's width. So again, I'm going to leave a slight gap just above my yellow for the blending in. Just keep that running all the way across. Don't worry if it's a bit streaky. Mine's a bit streaky. You can just run that brush through the paint and it should help to smooth all of that colour out. And I'm just sort of smudging close to the yellow. So I'm using the paintbrush with hardly any paint left on it, just to kind of smudge a bit closer for our blended edge. So you can put the paint on quite messily, and then you can smooth it out with that flat side of your brush. So bring it all the way across, round your curve. Got a bit of a lump in there, let's get rid of that. And don't forget to paint your edges. I haven't actually painted my edges, but it does look really good if you do. So I might go over and do them once I've finished with my colour. So I'm just pulling that colour all the way across, so we get a really nice, smooth orange. Just going to add a little bit more up here. Just try and get that about the same depth as the other colours, but again, it doesn't really matter, so don't stress about it. And then I'm dragging that brush flat side, either side, just to kind of get rid of the rest of the paint that's on the brush, which isn't a lot, and you get that nice kind of smudge of colour, which helps us to blend in when we come to do our red. So we don't really need to wash our brush out much. I'm just going to wipe that on the tissue and then dive straight into my red. I'm not really putting any extra water on my brush. I want that red to be really nice and dark and opaque, so not see-through at all. Our top corner. And then I'm running that brush just gently into that orange with the rest of the paint that's left on my brush. So I'm just going to get my brush damp and then should be able to blend in those colours. So we want our orange to yellow first. So I'm actually just going to do that with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange. Just get a little bit of that colour. You can actually just plonk it in that gap. And then give that brush a little bit of a white and get some more water. Make sure it's not drippy. And we can run that brush through that gap between the two and blend them all together nicely. A little bit more paint. So I've just got a bit of yellow and a bit of orange on my paintbrush. Again, I'm using the flat side of that brush. A little bit more yellow there. So just make sure that you've covered your canvas or whatever you're painting on, so that your colours are really nice and bright. Again, run that brush all the way around. So that's the join between our yellow and our orange. And then we've just got our red and our orange at the top. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of red, a little bit of orange, and do it the same way. So just use both those colours together, mixed on your palette, and then you can just run a little bit of that paint into that gap. Get your brush nice and wet. Take the drips off so it's not drippy, and then run that damp brush through that join area and blend those lovely two colours together. A little bit more orange there. There we go. So we've got all of our colours now. We've got our lovely rainbow. So we've got our purple to blue to green to yellow to orange to red. A little bit of a drip there. Cover that up. Now I've got a little bit of a mark where my drip was, so what I'll do is I'll probably paint a heart over that. So we can pop our big brush to one side now because we've finished with that. And I am going to go to my brush party number 6 brush. So don't worry, just any smaller brush that you can do a bit of detail work with. So preferably with a bit of a tip, so a nice point on the brush, because we've got the end kind of parts of our hearts to paint, and we've got all of our little ties as well, our strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a kind of a very orangey red. So I'm just going to plonk a load of red into where we mixed up our orange before. Now I'm doing it a slightly lighter colour because, especially down here, our red balloons have got to cover some quite dark colour. So it just helps to make them a little bit lighter. And actually, on the blue colours and purples, you could put a tiny bit of white in, which just again helps it to cover that dark colour. So I'm going to do those ones down at the bottom first of all. So just have a look across your picture wherever you're painting and just think, okay, well maybe I'll have one big heart in the middle somewhere on the green, and just vary your hearts. So I'm going to do the heart down in this blue area first, where I've got my little drip mark, just to cover that up. And it's quite nice if you paint them at different angles. So I'm going to start with my brush pointing downwards, so I'm painting the tip of my heart, and just curve that round. So I'm kind of pulling my brush up from that bottom tip. So can you see that reddy orange colour is actually quite dark, which is why we needed a little bit of extra yellow and white in that colour. Just pull that brush round and get that nice curve. And then we fill in the middle. So these ones, if you're painting, are going to need you to paint over them slightly afterwards, simply because it's, like I said, it's quite a lot darker. So I've just mixed a little bit of white into my colour there. Now it doesn't matter if that is kind of streaky. I actually think that looks quite nice. So I'm just going to make that, as I said, a little bit lighter. Now, although that looks a bit messy at the moment, I'm just going to let that one dry, and then we can paint over it. So that's just its first coat, really. So I'm going to do all the ones at the bottom first, the ones that are kind of over the darker colours. Are you painting as well, Becky? It'd be nice to see yours. So I'm going to have a big heart here. I'm going to start with my brush pointing down, and I'm going to bring that around. And this one's a little bit, well, it's quite a lot bigger actually. So I've got quite a lot of yellow and white in this red, so it's quite an orangey red, because it's got to go over these darker colours. So pulling that brush up, and then we can basically colour that in. Pull that brush round, and you should have time to paint over them like a second coat, whereas the ones at the top probably won't need a second coat. And what we can do now, because this is a kind of a lighter base colour, we can put much more of a true red on our second coat. So I'm just pulling that brush around. If you're really, really light on the brush, it actually covers that colour much better than if you're pushing really hard. So just be really light as you put that paint on, and it will help that paint go on a lot easier. Again. So don't worry if it looks a bit streaky at the moment. As I said, we'll let that dry. And then we can get a second coat on there. So I'm just going to leave that one like that. So they are quite streaky, but don't worry about that. Obviously they're shiny at the moment because they're wet. So we'll let those dry off. And I think we need another one here. So just keep it going with your hearts. Try and do them kind of different sizes each time. That's going to be my biggest heart there. And I'm doing them at different angles as well. So each one I do, I'm starting with that tip at the bottom of my heart and then coming out and around. And then just going back around those edges. Just to make them nice and crisp. So if you make your shapes really curved on the outside, because some hearts kind of go in, don't they, at the bottom. If you make them kind of curved all the way around, so they're quite kind of, they look very rounded, these balloons. I think it looks a lot better because then they're looking like they're kind of blown up balloons then. So just pulling that paint really gently up so that it covers. And I actually think they look quite nice, a bit sort of streaky. Just looks like they're kind of catching the light, floating off in the distance as we cheer for our lovely NHS. So don't forget to take some photos. Want to see all your pictures. So our painting's starting to come to life now that we started our balloons. There we go. So just take a moment and step back from your painting and you can kind of see where you might need to put some different hearts. So you kind of do it as you go along. Just have a look, step back, see where the gaps are, and just do different size hearts each time you do one. You might need to mix up a little bit more paint, but definitely do your hearts on the darker colours first, and then that'll give you a bit more time once they're dry. I'll do a little one down here to give them like another coat. Some nice rounded kind of bubbly hearts. That one's not got much of a tip on it, so I'm just going to give a bit more of a bottom to that one. So the colours down the bottom here are much more orangey. They've got more yellow and a little bit of white in them. Like I said, just to cover. But it doesn't really matter, you know, whatever you're using. Just get those hearts on top of your lovely rainbow. And if you're using paint, like I said, if you actually put the paint on really softly, it's going to stay over that colour a lot better than if you push really hard. Get those edges nicely around there. And then leave that to dry. So I'm just going to go back onto this one now. It's dried a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit more colour. Again, you need to be very light with your brush because at this stage that paint underneath it's not totally dry, so it will drag off if you're pushing too hard. Keep that going. Oh, that's actually nice. The orange looks nice on the blue. Just lightening that up slightly. There we go. Right, I'm going to carry on. Now, let's have a look at the whole thing. I think we need one in here. A little bit of water, a little bit more red, because we're on to the yellow now, so you can afford to put a bit more red into your colour. Just twirl that brush around. Make sure you've got a nice tip to your balloon at the bottom. So just use the very tip of your brush just to get that bottom edge to your balloon where we're going to attach our string. If your paint's a bit sticky, just add a little bit more water, but not enough so that it's going to drip down your painting. We don't want drips. So keep taking the photographs. And as I said, we'd love to see your pictures on social media, so please do post them. You can use our @tag, it's @tag Brush Party UK. And as I said, if you're going onto Facebook, you can actually post your photos straight to our Facebook page. So just find Brush Party and then find posts. And then in that posts section, you can actually share your pictures directly onto our page, which is awesome. So I'm going with a bit more red now in my colour because we're on to these warmer kind of reddish colours. Now, where do I need another one? Up here, I think. Do a slightly smaller one up here. Nice tip to our balloon at the bottom. Keep those balloons nice and rounded. Just a bit too much paint on my brush there. So get some nice edges around the sides of your balloons first, and then you can fill them in with that colour. So it's really taking shape now. Almost there with your painting. So once your painting's dry and you put them in your window, go outside and take a picture from outside of your lovely painting. It'll be really nice to see. And don't forget that discount code. We'd love you to join us for some more brush parties online. So as I said, we've got that discount which is available on bookings until Sunday. So you've got quite a few days to get your bookings in and get that discount. So it's HOPE20, HOPE20. So that's all capitals, HOPE20. Right, we're doing another little one over here. I'm not sure what the NHS tags are. I suppose it's just hashtag NHS, but if you tag your painting with that as well, they might see it. I don't know whether they're kind of looking out for paintings that people are doing, but have a look at what other people are tagging. It would be good if they get to see all your paintings, wouldn't it? So that's a smaller one, slightly over this side. And then I reckon just two more up the top. And we're almost there. Yeah, I think a little one there and a little one there. So just step back from your painting and just kind of see, as I said, where the gaps are with your hearts. And then get those painted in. So again, I'm just doing that outside edge first, making those heart shapes really rounded. None of my nails are pinged off yet. I'm well impressed. I was sticking them on right up until I went live, so right up to the wire. I'm not sure how long they'll last though, but hey ho. Bit of fun, isn't it? So we've got probably one more heart to do now, but you can do as many hearts as you like. Just going to pop another little one just here. Floating off. So then I'll just put some extra colour on those bottom ones that are painted over our dark colours. So I'm going to go back in and just mixing up a little bit of lighter colour just to go over these dark ones down here, or the balloons that are painted over are darker colours. And again, just be really light with your putting your paint on, and it should go over a lot easier. You're not shouldn't drag that paint that's underneath then. Just really gently go over the top, because that paint underneath is still a bit wet. If you want to, and you've got lots of time, which most of us have, is you could paint all of your hearts white first of all, and then let that dry and then paint over them. But if there's any areas on your hearts that are you just can't get them to look a nice reddy colour, just paint that section white, and then you can go over it. But actually this is working pretty well, just painting it straight on. So I'm just giving it a bit more colour so that we don't really see that background colour anymore. So nice and gentle. Don't kind of scrub your brush over the top, because it will move that paint underneath. You don't want that. So we've got a nice lot of balloons going on here. I'm just going to go over that darker area on this one, because it's gone over that green there. Very happy with my balloons. My plan is working. There we go. Right, so it's just this one that needs a little bit more attention. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit more red with a tiny bit of white, a little bit of yellow. So it's just a little bit more of an orangey colour, just so that we can get it covering that darker colour. I'm just resting my hand on the canvas. Just make sure you've got no paint on the side of your hand, and that this is actually dry before you rest your hand on it. Just getting those edges nice and crisp. I'm just going over exactly the same way as I first. It doesn't make any difference. It's absolutely up to you. Just get a little bit more colour on this one, and then we'll move on to our strings, and then give our balloons a little bit of a highlight with some white paint as well. So we're almost there. Right, so I'm going to mix up a really light orange colour and just do some slight kind of highlights around the left hand side of our balloons. So it's just literally a few kind of brushes of paint, just to make it kind of look like our balloons are really rounded. And then I'm going to wash that brush out, and I'm going to do the same, not quite the same. I'm going to put some little highlights on the top kind of curves in white. So I'm just putting a little bit of water into that white paint, just so it flows nicely. And I'm just going to put a little kind of dash of white on those top curves of our hearts. Just gives them that nice little kind of finishing touch. Makes them really like they're full of air. So just go around and do all of the tops of your balloons. And then we've just got the string to do. So I'm going to carry on using my number 6 brush, and I am going to twirl this round so that I get a really, really fine point to it, because I want to do strings. Actually, I'm going to give myself a little bit more white paint because that's a bit dirty. What you can do is, if you've got those paint pens, these paint pens, you could draw your strings in with those. I'll do one of them with my paint pen just so that you can see what it looks like. So you could just simply draw that in, but I'm going to paint them now. So I'm just adding a little bit more white to my palette, and I'm going to get that brush as clean as I can. I don't really want any orange on there. So I'm going to use some clean white now, and twisting that number 6 brush around so I get a really nice fine tip to it, and then I'm just dipping that tip back in, and that allows us to paint a really fine line. But as I said, you can use a paint pen if you find it a little bit easier if you've got one. And don't worry if you haven't got white, just use whatever colour you've got, it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to go around all my balloons and give them all a little bit of string. Make them nice and curvy. We don't probably need to go over some of those actually. So as they dry, they'll probably get a little bit more transparent, so we can just go over them with another little coat. And that is basically our Hope Floats painting. What we can do just as a little touch is just add those little kind of triangles just at the bottom of our each balloon, you know, like where you tie your balloon off. And then your strings kind of round that, isn't it? It's just literally a little triangle with a flat bottom kind of pointing up at the top of your, or pointing into the, sorry, the bottom of your balloon. Just paint that slightly over your, where you've painted your string from. And that is your painting. I've done all of them. Got 2 more to do. Last one. There we go. That is our beautiful brush party Hope Floats painting. That's to help you support our wonderful NHS. Now obviously my balloons are a bit wet at the moment, so they're still a bit shiny. So there you go, you can see a bit better now. So take lots and lots of photographs of your gorgeous pictures and post them to social media. Pop over to our website, brushparty.co.uk, and you can grab some new stock. So everything that you'll need to do another painting with us. If you're going to book some more events, use that discount code. So it's capital HOPE20, and you'll get 20% off your booking. And yeah, we've got loads of events coming up. I'll just have a look at my list. So today we have got Moon River at 3 o'clock, and then we've got Misty Mountain, which is this one up here. I'm going to be painting that at 7 tonight. And then tomorrow we've got A Whole Llama Love, and then Thinking Time and Poppy Field at 7 o'clock tomorrow. And then on Saturday we've got Lazy Days and A Wonderful Cherry Blossom. So just keep an eye on what we're publishing, and get your bookings in with that discount. And yeah, if you haven't already, Our subscribe button, I think, is about down there. So subscribe to this channel. We're producing gradually more and more kind of training videos, kind of how-to videos, how to mix different paints, use different brushes, that kind of thing, all sort of techniques and stuff. So there'll be lots of interesting stuff coming on board. If you press the bell, you'll actually get a notification when we add new videos. So please do subscribe and join us here on our channel. And yeah, stay safe, stay at home, pop your paintings in your window, take lots of photographs. And then when you're cheering tonight and giving the good round of applause for the NHS, then your home will be enhanced with your masterpieces that you've just created. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been amazing to have you on board, and I can't wait to see all the photographs of your lovely, lovely pictures. So I'll say bye-bye for now. Just remember, brushparty.co.uk is our web address, and our @tag is @brushpartyuk. So enjoy carrying on with your painting. Please rewind or pause if you want to, and as I said, take lots of photographs, and please do post them so that we can see them. Thank you so much, and I will say bye-bye for now, and catch you really soon, and make sure you lovely, lovely pictures that you've done today. Stay safe, take care, bye for now.